Hello, Austin. It's so great to have you here on our episode of Today on Wall Street. So Austin, you are a stage and screen actor based in New York City, and you also have extensive credentials in theater and music, and has given award-winning performances in plays and musicals. And more recently, you are the 2021 Grammy Award nominee in the Best Musical Theater Album category. Such a great honor to have you here in our studio. So first, congratulations on the Grammy nomination. Austin, can you describe to me what it was like when you first got the good news? When were you doing at that time, and how did you feel?
Thank you, and thank you for having me. It's actually a funny story. So the Grammy nomination committee, the Recording Academy, I actually didn't know. I found out through social media from other people that I got nominated when the awards were, or when the nominations were announced, because the Grammy nomination team, they sent out apparently they sent out an email that's like, congratulations, you're nominated for a Grammy. Please send us back, the information and all this stuff and, contact things. But it went to spam because, I think because it just said like, congratulations, you're this award. And, nowadays we get so much spam that's like, congratulations, you won this gift card, or, blah, blah, blah. So, when your spam filters are set high, sometimes things get sent to spam. So I actually only found out, I think that day after the nominations were announced, people were sending me messages and like, hey, I saw your name on the thing, and oh, congratulations on the nomination. And I was like, what are people talking about? And then I went and looked, and I was like, oh, our show got nominated and I got nominated. And it's been very amazing and cool. It's sort of a mixed, a double-edged sword, though, because, not everybody that is involved in a production ends up getting named on the nomination. Only the lead characters and the lead producers and writing team for the musical theater album gets nominated. So it's hard, too, because you want everyone who's involved to be recognized, too, especially when other people have done just as much work,
Right. So thank you for that answer. So next, tell me a little bit about the musical Soft Power, which got the nomination. So some of our audience might have not seen the musical yet. What's the storyline and what's your role in it?
Sure. Yeah. So it started as a commission in Los Angeles at the Amundsen Theater. And then we did also another little production tour of it in San Francisco, and then it came to New York off-Broadway at the Public Theater, which is a very highly respected off-Broadway theater where Hamilton started, where A Chorus Line started, so they were involved in it from the beginning too. It's a little bit hard to describe, but it is I want to say the words that our creators have used is, I think they call it a political fantasia. So it's a big style musical that has a theme of sort of East-West politics in it. There's a lot of sort of like nuances to it, but basically, David Henry Hwang, who's the writer, he has a history of doing, East-West shows like M Butterfly, for which he won the Tony Award. Chinglish, which I did on tour and in Hong Kong. So he does these shows because he's an Asian American writer that, embrace his heritage and our heritage along with conflict with American culture. So Soft Power is basically a musical by Chinese, as if a musical about America was written by Chinese people. In the same way that, Western people have written big musicals about Asia or Asian culture, Asian people, like Flower Drum Song, The King and I, Miss Saigon. These are these big, grand musicals that focus on like an Asian country or Asian people, but are often told from a Western viewpoint looking at it. And then sometimes there's, broad stereotypes, or, over time, maybe some of the things don't age so well because they didn't really know the culture that well. They just sort of took what they thought about it and turned it into a story from their viewpoint. So it sort of takes that, but reverses it on American culture, as if in the future, the Chinese have made this musical about America in 2016 and what it was like with the racism and the gun violence and Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and all this stuff. So they've sort of done that about America.
I see. So what's the targeted audience of the performance? And do you have a message that you want your audience to take away from your performance?
Yeah. So, I mean, the audience, of course, I think is because it's an American musical, even though it's Asian American, it's still American. It's in English. Although there's some Chinese in it, of course, but it is still from sort of an Asian American viewpoint. So I think it's meant for American audiences to sort of reflect on what other people are seeing about us, especially right now, and then also the way that we treat other cultures. And I forgot to answer the second part of your question, which is what is my character? So my character is Bobby Bob. So he is, I would say he's sort of like, the typical best friend kind of sidekick of the main character. So the main character, Xuexing, he's a Chinese businessman who then comes to America during the whole 2016 Trump-Hillary Clinton election and kind of falls in love with Hillary Clinton and becomes her advisor, kind of in the same way in The King and I. If you know The King and I, the Western woman, Anna, she comes and becomes the advisor to the king of Siam, and they kind of have an unspoken love, but they never really kiss. So it's sort of like a play on that, where this Chinese man comes to America, meets Hillary Clinton, and is like, oh, I can teach you the good ways of the Chinese. And they kind of have an unspoken love kind of situation. Anyway, so then he befriends an American teenager, Bobby Bob, played by me. And so I'm sort of like the good-hearted American guy who shows him around town and teaches him about American stuff. And we love McDonald's, and, we all love our guns, that kind of stuff. So yeah, what I would hope that people get from the show and from my performance is, reflection on kind of like what I said before, like how we act towards other people, how we're seen by other people, in recognition that America is part of a global society, and we have to really be aware of everyone else and not be so centric on just our own values and understandings. We have to understand other cultures and be part of that. And so in the show, I have like a blonde wig and I'm playing like a Caucasian person. So my character, I think, is meant to be sort of like the entryway for maybe like a Caucasian person who is watching the show. Like, oh, I empathize with that person who's like the good-hearted American person who befriends the person from another culture. There's other characters in the show who are, mean gun-toting Americans who don't understand or who hate foreigners, who want to build the wall. But my character is not one of those. So hopefully the audience can use me as a gateway as an understanding American.
Gotcha. Such a fantastic story. On to some personal details about yourself. How did you discover your artistic talents when you were a kid? And, I happen to know, after a period of career as an artist, you also took a break, went to law school at Berkeley and practiced law for a brief period of time. So that was quite a dramatic career change. And what was it all about?
Yeah, I think in a way there's some sort of typical Asian Chinese background going on there where, my family, I played violin, I played piano, I just loved music and art and theater and all this stuff growing up, but it was never really like, oh, you should go do this as a career. It was like, this is good for you. This, you want to be a well-rounded person. You want to, have a lot of education and all these things that's very valued in our heritage. But then of course it was still like, you want to get a stable job, successful career kind of thing. So I did the music and the theater growing up, and I really loved it. But then still when I went to school, I went in as pre-med to become a doctor, but then, I didn't really like the advanced science courses. And then I switched, and then I ended up going to law school. And I thought all the time, like still doing like performing and stuff on the side. I thought doing law school would be a good way to be on the business side of the entertainment industry and still be sort of involved in that sort of artistic stuff, but in a sensible, practical way. But I just kept doing the stuff on the side, and I just like found so much joy from it. And it was actually sort of a coincidence that this was in, the 2000s, and there was sort of like an economic downturn. And I got laid off from my law job at the same time that I got asked to join a theater company as a company member. And so it just sort of happened at the same time. And I did that, and then I just never went back. And it was sort of an interesting roundabout way, but in a way it worked out because I also have now had a taste of what it's like to have like a regular job. And I know it's something that I can do, but is not something that I really want to do. And at the same time, doing it for a little bit and going through law school and all of that stuff gave me a couple things, like, a business sense about the business and finances, a little bit of nest egg so that I could like have some downtime to pursue the arts, and kind of like a fortitude, maybe I would say, of having been through something academically rigorous. And obviously law school is hard, and being a lawyer is hard, and mentally and emotionally and all that stuff. And having done that, I think has made me a stronger person to be in this other industry.
Gotcha. And I can totally relate to that. So I was trained as a academic economist, but I'm not working as a journalist. But if there's one thing I learned from my grad school years, is like, there's nothing you can't learn and become good at it. So what I'm doing currently is vastly different from my grad school learnings in game theory, stuff like that. So onto your current life. As we know, we are currently in this pandemic, and many artists have found their lives changed by the pandemic. I mean, there are so many gatherings and events that have been canceled or postponed. So how has the pandemic changed your life as an artist? And what's a typical day in your life like these days?
As an artist, as an actor, I'm used to ups and downs, right? You're in a show, the show ends, or you do a TV show or a movie, you do it for a while, it's great, you're making money, and then it ends, and then you have to get the next job. So there's always like down times. Not always, sometimes you get lucky enough to, back to back to back, but a lot of times there's down times for us as, freelancers, more or less. So we're used to sort of slow periods. So for a while, when pandemic first started, it was kind of like, oh, okay, so now I'm just in a slow period. But then as it's gone on, it's sort of like, oh, this is a really long slow period. But what's interesting is, I think with every business, human nature, and the arts freelancers too, is sort of like an adaptability to whatever happens. They say the show must go on, so the show finds a way to go on as far as adapting to the virtual situation. I was involved in one of the very first big scale quarantine virtual concerts, the Stephen Sondheim 90th birthday celebration, which happened on YouTube with like Meryl Streep and everything. And I had a little solo in that, which was in, I want to say, late March. It happened just a few weeks after everything shut down. Like, people found a way to like, okay, we have to keep something going. So they did that. And there were crazy technical difficulties. The live stream wasn't working. And the audio then wasn't working. And so they had to like go shut down and then like come back on. And people were on social media saying, what happened? Is it canceled? Is it still going on? And, the producers were live tweeting like, we're figuring it out. We're figuring it out. Please stay with us. Like for like an hour, I think. But then it came on, and then people still waited around to watch it, or like, heard it was coming back on, and they came back on and people watched it, and it was a big thing. But yeah, people have found ways to adapt to doing Zoom readings, musicals, pre-taped concerts. Now with social distancing, I've seen some streamed shows where the people are on stage just like all standing 6 feet apart with like, the plastic visors on with no audience, and they tape it and then stream it. The performing labor unions are still figuring out exactly the details, but, we're all hopeful that it will work out. And also with, the vaccines and everything, we're hopeful that it will come back in a few months safely. But we're all finding ways to adapt. You see this is actually, I can show you like the edges. It's actually like a pop-up background so that I can record things. And it looks like clean behind me. In the corner, there's like a little booth that I have like a chair and a desk and a microphone, so I can, record singing or audio and things like that. I didn't have that before. I had to do that. So I can record auditions here at home and send them off. And
it's amazing how we can adapt to different situations. Here's a heavier topic that I wanted to discuss with you a little bit. As you know, there has been a dramatic increase in anti-Asian violence. So to your fellow Asian Americans who have experienced racism and felt somewhat unwelcomed in this country, what message do you have to them? What will you say to them?
It's hard. It's always been hard. I mean, I think we as Asian people, it's not new either. It's just for whatever reason. I don't know if it's necessarily even increased so much as gotten more attention. In the same way of like Black Lives Matter, in the summer of last year, things sort of like crested, but it wasn't like racism, that kind of racism was new. It's just because of quarantine and because of social media and the global network that is now, is that things that happen, people hear about more. And also the younger generation, I think, is more vocal about standing up for themselves and using social media to broadcast things and share. So it's just like more of an awareness of what's already there. I want to say, you have to lean on your support people and make sure you have support people around you. That, your friends, your family, and be there for one another. And find that support where you can, if you're having a difficult time. And of course there's, resources if you're struggling, don't be ashamed to reach out to mental health resources. There's lots of those things available. Lots of people are sharing, that for you personally. If you need some help, if you want to help other people, lots of people are sharing resources, organizations, websites where you can donate money or like do activities. Be open and vocal about it. I think one of the things, I was reading some things about some of the factors that have contributed to all of this buildup over time, especially, in America and Asians. And, we have like the model minority myth and all this stuff. And culturally, we are very, historically, culturally, it's sort of like, our hierarchies are very important, and, deference to your elders, deference to your leaders, staying quiet, like fitting in. And, these are things that if we want to combat some of the the racism and xenophobia against us, especially here in America, we have to be able to take a cue from the younger generation and stand up for ourselves more and be more vocal about it, both for ourselves and I think for other people too. I think it's really important that we not only see this happening to ourselves now and only think about ourselves. Because one of the hard things I'm seeing online too is non-Asian people not knowing about this and not sharing about it, but also not wanting to help. Because if we were not there for other people, for instance, in Black Lives Matter or LGBT rights or trans rights, not being there for other communities when they're being hurt by the system, then how can we expect other people to help us in our time of need? So kind of like what I was saying about being a global society, and also, what soft power hopes to do too, is that we all have to help each other to make the world a better place. We can't just be selfish and think about ourselves. Even if we're being hurt right now, we still want to help other people.
Yeah, thank you for that message. Now on to something a little brighter. You will have a recurring role on an upcoming Netflix series. Do you mind sharing a little more details about that show? When should we expect to see the series online?
I can't tell you anything.
Okay, so yeah, secret for now, but we will...
Secret for now.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
I've heard that it's coming out. Netflix always has things coming out, but I've heard that our show will come out maybe later this year.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I play a friend of, I guess I'm good at playing friends because I play a friend of like the main character. So I'm in a couple of episodes as a friend. Yeah.
Gotcha. That's a good hint, but we will keep an eye on Netflix and see when you're on it. Final question of the day. As you briefly alluded to, coming from an immigrant family or Asian family, sometimes it's pretty hard to balance your dreams and your personal interest with the need or the requirement to choose the safe or practical path. So there might be many aspiring young artists out there who are debating whether they should pursue their dreams or should they choose the career that their parents want them to choose. What advice do you have for those aspiring young artists?
I almost don't know if I should say it this way, but I want to say it in kind of like a joking way, is I almost want to say, like, if you are debating it, then don't do it. Don't do it. And then if you're somebody who is not going to listen to me and you have to do it anyway, then you should be doing it. Because it's hard. Maybe it's less hard if you have certain resources or whatever, but especially for someone who's a minority, someone who's Asian in America trying to break it into a creative field where we are underrepresented, it's hard, and you have to have a thick skin, and you have to have fortitude and resilience, and be able to take rejection and not get down about it and have depression or like mental health is huge. So unless you're driven to do it, if you're going to be the type of person who has a burning desire or develops a burning desire and is like, you know what, people told me I shouldn't do it, but I have to try it anyway, then do it. But for those who think it's just going to be a hobby or fun or something, like, my advice would be, don't do it, and then go ahead and ignore me and do it anyway if you have to.
I see.
If you feel that you have to.
I see. Thank you so much, Austin. This has been such a great conversation. I look forward to seeing more of your performances in the future. Thank you.
I hope so. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.